Hey, nice to meet you for another Murdock Music Minute in this episode of Getting Into. This is where I take a look at an artist's or a band's discography and pick out 3 to 5 albums that I think are a good way to be introduced to this band's discography. Albums that give you a good overview of the most essential parts of the band's career, or albums that I simply think are a good introduction. This can be essential albums, but sometimes maybe not only the most obvious choices, simply to pinpoint some decisive moments in the discography of the band or artist in question, or to cut a long story short, albums for beginners. And in this case, in this episode 2 of Getting Into, you could also name this video The Kinks for beginners, or an introduction to the Kinks discography. But for some reason, I just chose Getting Into the Kinks. The Kinks, founded in the middle-class suburbs of northern London. Usually, if people talk about the great influential British bands from the 1960s, of course, you hear the Beatles and the Stones mentioned, but usually the third big band named are the Kinks. Some maybe would rather put The Who above the Kinks as the third big English band, but the Kinks are pretty much up there after the Beatles and the Stones. We are talking about yet another really huge discography, and so I decided to again pick 5 albums that I think are a good introduction to get into the Kinks, apart from their hit singles, of course, and 5 albums that will help you to find out whether you will become a complete Kinks fan and whether it will be worth your time, then maybe diving deeper into their whole discography. Again, once more, before I start with my 5 albums, please be aware that this is not a ranking. This is also not meant to be a best albums of the Kinks video. I'll just talk about 5 getting into albums in their chronological order of release. Of all the famous British bands from the 60s, the Kinks were probably the most quintessentially English sounding band, at least from the mid-60s onwards. But the Kinks, like all of their peers and contemporaries, started out as a really raw and wild rhythm and blues influenced group. Arguably, they were the wildest of the whole bunch, because their first hit single, You Really Got Me, to this day is celebrated as one of the key tracks for the development of either punk rock or metal, or actually both of those genres. So why not start with the Kinks' debut album? If you listen to it in comparison to the first album by the Beatles or the first album by the Rolling Stones, my personal opinion actually is that this is a pretty solid debut album, and personally I prefer it over the Rolling Stones and the Beatles' debut albums. Of course, you get the hit single, and as was common for the times, a handful of cover versions, very bluesy stuff, and a few more or less throwaway original songs to fill the album. That was the common practice, because back then albums were not as important as hit singles to be played on the radio, and a lot of the first albums, even by those famous bands in the 1960s, are a bit of a random collection of songs, usually the material that they also played live, quickly recorded in 1 or 2 days. And for that, the Kinks' debut album actually is really a pretty good document of the earlier 1960s. However, this is not my first pick for my 5 Getting Into the Kinks albums. For the first album to really start with the Kinks, I would recommend their 1966 release, Face to Face. This was their 4th album, if you don't count albums that were specifically released for the US market, and usually were compilations of parts of their original British albums. And it's inevitable to, if you talk about 60s music, it's often inevitable to compare releases to what the Beatles did. So if you want to make a comparison, Face to Face is sort of the Kinks' A Hard Day's Night or Help. It's the first Kinks album to include only original songs written by the group themselves. Of course, mastermind of the Kinks was Ray Davies. It's also the first album where they clearly moved away from the pure rhythm and blues, garage rock sound of their earlier albums, and where you get a glimpse of this, what is again usually considered typical English Kinks sound. You get this especially in the most famous songs from the album, Dandy and Sunny Afternoon, but also elsewhere there are traces of Baroque pop thrown in. For instance, the wonderful harpsichord playing on the track Session Man, but also songs like Rainy Day in June. The album starts with the very fun Party Line, quite a catchy pop rock opener, very much in the vein of the Beatles. And then you also get acoustic material that veers a little bit into early psychedelic sounds. For instance, the very Indian influenced song Fancy. It's a very diverse, very entertaining 1960s pop rock album. The cover artwork is very much pop art of the mid-60s, also already foreshadowing the psychedelic explosion that would come a little later in 1967. Interestingly, the Kinks never really went fully psychedelic. They always rather stuck to a more concise, straightforward songwriting. And Face to Face is a wonderful example of this. Mid-60s, the Kinks, Face to Face. My pick number 2 in the Getting Into the Kinks album list is the follow-up album released in 1967. The Kinks famously had been banned from touring the USA for several years. I think one of the main reasons was that they somehow, they or their management got in trouble and into a dispute with the musicians union there, but maybe also some backstage behavior fueled this famous ban. And this ban, this restriction of touring their music in the USA, which was of course the most important and biggest music market for an English band back then, and probably still to this day, is often regarded as one of the main reasons why the Kinks never really made it as big in America as the Stones and the Beatles, but also one of the main reasons why Ray Davies' songwriting changed so much and really changed towards those character studies and those very English topics looking at life in England and the English middle class, which you don't get in that way from the Stones or the Beatles or the Who. And their fifth album, called Something Else by the Kinks, really was something else. And this is the album that started this trend fully on. You get a first glimpse of that on Face to Face, and then Something Else is probably the most quintessential Kinks sounding Kinks album, at least in terms of what people usually associate with the 1960s sound of the Kinks. It's a wonderful collection of pop rock songs. It has a baroque pop touch to it, more so than any other Kinks album. It is slightly psychedelic, but cannot be considered a really psychedelic rock album. At the core, it is just a wonderfully written pop album. And what makes it also special is that the Kinks used a lot of influences from typical English music hall tunes in their music, so tunes you would hear in old-fashioned shows around London, or maybe even songs that would be sung in pubs. And that is also something that sets the style of the Kinks apart from their other contemporaries. You get a little bit of that maybe also in the music of the Small Faces, but Ray Davies really is the master of combining all these specifically English sounds with a knack for just fantastic pop writing. The most famous song on Something Else by the Kinks is, of course, Waterloo Sunset. This is a key song of the 1960s. It is frequently voted as one of the best songs of the 1960s, one of the most beautiful pop songs of all times, and you probably have heard this song somewhere, maybe on television or on the radio or on any 1960s compilation. But this is not the only track that makes Something Else worthwhile listening to. Other songs worth mentioning, I mean, they are all actually great. It's just a wonderfully flowing, very concise and coherent collection of songs. But other songs worth mentioning are Death of a Clown. This is a song written by Dave Davies, Ray's younger brother. Also, one of the important features of the Kinks was that this is one of the bands led by two brothers. And like most bands that included brothers, the Kinks look back at a history of turmoil and internal fights as well. It's a rather acoustic album with poignant lyrics about everyday life situations in England, certain types and certain characters you would probably see in the London area, which was where the Kinks were from. The album starts, however, with the more energetic David Watts, later covered in a punk version by The Jam, a song that I like very much, both musically and lyrically. There are also tracks, however, like Two Sisters, more melancholic acoustic track. No Return has very tasteful acoustic guitar playing, bit of a jazz influence almost, combined with folk. It actually sounds like something the Pentangle could have done in their early years. Very unusual, even for the Kinks, and another beautiful song. Tin Soldier Man and Situation Vacant are very ironic ditties, and the whole album ends with the more pastoral end of the season and the aforementioned Waterloo Sunset. Yes, maybe really the best or the most important song Ray Davies has ever written. Without this album, acts like The Jam, Paul Weller, but also Blur and basically the whole Britpop movement would be unthinkable, actually. So Something Else by the Kinks definitely is an album you should listen to if you want to get started with the Kinks discography. And the style that they established with this album is, I think, even more perfected, but again, played with a bit more of rock energy on the follow-up album to Something Else. And that's also my third pick for the Getting Into the Kinks albums, but don't worry, will not simply go through their late 60s releases. But my third pick, indeed, is the album that came next, released in 1968, originally planned as a double album, but this plan was nixed by the record company because, yeah, to be honest, the Kinks were not a best-selling act at that time. So the album was released in a sort of edited version, and nowadays is considered their very best album. And that album is The Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society. On this album, the Kinks celebrate all the English eccentricities and go into complete nostalgia mode, singing about things that are disappearing from English life, especially from the English countryside. The title track mentions, ironically, some very English characters from literature and pop culture combined with typical things that you would find in small villages in the 1960s, also to some extent to this day, but of course villages in the 60s in England were quite different from what we would find nowadays, and I think that's the same all around the world. They sing about old photographs, steam-powered trains that are disappearing and no longer needed, and all that in really gloriously catchy pop and rock tunes. Johnny Thunder is one of the best tracks on here. Sitting by the Riverside is another ditty that very strongly uses music hall influences. The track Picture Book has a very characteristic acoustic lick that later on should influence one of the best known tracks by the pop punk band Green Day. And another of my favorite tunes on here is Starstruck. Not an album that maybe will immediately, hit you like a big hit album, but if you give it a little time, it really is chock full of fantastic, memorable tunes. With this one, the Kinks also started a long streak of more or less conceptual albums. Some were better than others. This album was an absolute flop when it was released, but as I've said before, it has gained a classic status over the years, and especially among critics. And nowadays, whenever there is talk about the Kinks, this album is the one that critics, but I guess also fans, will point to as the one that you need if you want to have one Kinks album get the Village Green Preservation Society. As indicated, the Kinks again and again had internal troubles and turmoils, and at the time of Village Green Preservation Society, there was some disillusionment within the band. Some members afterwards left the group. It was a time of reorientation, a time of questioning where they should go as a band and whether they could go on as a band. And all of this, however, led to one of their most well-known and I think also most successful albums after a phase of consecutive flops that are nowadays critically acclaimed, but all these albums that I mentioned didn't sell very well. However, at the beginning of the next decade, and this is my pick number 4, the Kinks released another loosely conceptual album, again with a lengthy title, Lola versus Powerman and the Money Go Round, Part 1. I think there never was a Part 2, but the title already indicates that some theme or concept is going on in the background. Lyrically, it's a very sneering, cynical album at times where Ray Davies and his band members reflect on their role in the music business. They criticize the music business, but also capitalist society in general. But then this album also indeed features Lola, which was the first hit single, I guess, about cross-dressing and transvestites or even gender diversity, all presented in a very sing-along, memorable pop rock tune. This is also one of the most famous hits by the Kinks. The album as a whole is more rock-oriented again. You can clearly hear that the 1960s were over now, and the bands, also the Kinks, were looking for a new sound. It sounds a bit more, well, yes, powerful in terms of the electric guitars. Overall, I'd say it's a pop rock album, and to my ears, it even foreshadows the sound of glam rock bands a little bit. Personally, I'd say it's a bit of an uneven album, actually, but it's certainly a good one to get started with the Kinks and also one of their essentials. Apart from Lola, another song on here, and that really is one of my personal favorites, is the song Powerman. This is built just around great guitar work, a very memorable driving guitar lick or riff, whichever way you prefer it. Top of the Pops is a sarcastic rocker, almost with a punk edge on this album. And then there's also This Time Tomorrow, one of the most beautiful songs, again, by the Kinks, reflecting not only on just the passing of time, but maybe also the fading or the instability of stardom. And this album also featured another of their most successful singles in Ape Man. This is a bit more of the silly sides of the Kinks, but also quite a catchy ditty if you would like something more lightweight. 1970, Lola versus Powerman and the Money Go Round. This was followed by a long phase, actually lasting until the end of the 1970s for the Kinks, where Ray Davies was really obsessed with concept albums, almost like, well, rock musicals or rock operas. The Kinks released a couple of such albums dealing with different themes, and most of these albums are really worth checking out, either for how odd they are, but others are also really quite entertaining. However, as my last pick for getting into the Kinks, I would make rather a huge jump into the early 80s to also present what the Kinks were at in that decade, which was a difficult decade for practically any classic rock band from the 60s and 70s. And interestingly, the Kinks did quite well. After the sometimes really odd or also rather bitter and almost forced arty concept albums of the early and mid 70s, the Kinks really had estranged a lot of their fans. Then they had reinvented themselves or had refound success in the USA with some more straightforward, almost arena rock albums. And from 1970 onwards and in the early 80s, they suddenly also were rediscovered or re-celebrated by punk and new wave acts for their, punk energy and also their lyrics that were often filled with social critique, social commentary. Most notably, of course, songs like David Watts and the really punk guitar sound of You Really Got Me. And that's when Ray Davies decided, hey, let's take a look at this punk and new wave scene here and see what we can come up with. And the Kinks in the early 80s produced 2 to 3 albums which are definitely influenced by what was going on sound-wise at that time. And other rock acts, older rock acts, of course, also tried their hands at this or were forced by their music labels to, go with the times. And compared to some others, I think the Kinks could adapt to this new sound remarkably well. Maybe because they had this sort of attitude already in their earlier songwriting. And the album that I picked as my number 5 for an introduction to the Kinks discography is State of Confusion. It came out in 1983, and even though the title probably reflects what a lot of the older bands felt like, namely being in a state of confusion and musical disorientation, the Kinks really took the best from the new production fashion and the new styles and created a very well flowing and new wave rock album that works really well, not only in terms of sound, but also in terms of the songs. It's certainly not their deepest album, but simply a very nice collection of songs in the style of early 80s rock music. You get a bit of punk guitars, not unlike, for instance, The Police. Of course, you have more keyboards, but done very tastefully, and you get some pop ballads, most notably Don't Forget to Dance, which I think was the last really big radio hit for the Kinks. The band doesn't shy away from distorted guitars on tracks like Definite Maybe or Labor of Love, showing that they were not simply or only following trends, but that indeed they had actually maybe sown the seeds for these trends back in the 60s and in the 1970s. Heart of Gold is another solid track, not related to the song by Neil Young. Property is great 80s pop rock. And with Come Dancing, Ray Davies even took a look back at his family history a little bit. It's an autobiographic song about his sister. And then there's a track called Young Conservatives, which is pure punk rock power pop that again showed that the Kinks were forerunners of this style actually. And this one really does not need to hide behind younger bands of those days like The Jam or XTC. State of Confusion shows the Kinks feeling quite comfortable in the English new wave and punk rock scene of the early 80s, and the Kinks definitely sounded a lot fresher than bands like the Rolling Stones or the Who in the early 80s. So if you want to have simply a nice collection of songs, 80s rock music that is fun and catchy, try State of Confusion. And those are my 5 getting into picks. I've realized, or maybe also deliberately, some of my personal favorite Kinks albums are not featured in this list. There are a lot more gems in the Kinks discography that you will probably discover and cherish as soon as you've decided that you are a Kinks fan after these 5 gateway albums that I've mentioned. Yeah, I hope this has been fun for you, either to learn more about the Kinks or to decide where to start. Or if you are, which is more likely, I guess, if you watch the video to the very end, if you already are familiar with the Kinks discography, I hope this was still fun for you. You can compare this to what your list would be to get into this band. Maybe let me know in the comments. Not what your 5 favorite Kinks albums are, but what you would say are 5 or 3 good albums to get started with the Kinks. Some would probably argue if you get started, then start with the start. Others might miss albums like Sleepwalker or Misfits. Yeah, I'd argue there's something for everybody in the Kinks discography, from more harder edged stuff to top-notch pop songwriting. That's it from me for today's episode. Stay tuned for more Murdock Music Minutes, maybe some more getting into lists, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.